Welcome to your last video for Unit 1. Today we're going to be looking at the steps that were taken in the colonies that eventually led the colonists to revolt and break away from Great Britain, okay? So the first thing we need to talk about is actually prior to the Revolutionary War, we have a war called the French and Indian War. And sometimes, depending on what part of the world you're learning about this in, you might hear it referred to as the 7 Years' War. But in the United States, we call it the French and Indian War. And it's kind of a misnomer, kind of a confusing, easily mistaken phrase, French and Indian, because you would assume that that means the French and the Indians were fighting each other. And that's not what it was. The French fought alongside the Native Americans, and they fought against the colonists who were supported by Great Britain. So 1750s, we are still very much politically connected to Great Britain, and we are still fighting alongside them in battles, okay? So the French and Indian War was fought over land in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So at this point in colonial America, the line is starting to be pushed further to the west, okay? The colonists are settling. They are kind of expanding westward, and as they do so, they kind of mesh with Native American tribes that are already there. So one thing we know about war, any sort of war, fighting, battles, anything like that, is that it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to fund that, okay? So as Great Britain helped the United States protect themselves from the French and Indian advances, they were like, you know what? We spent a lot of money on you guys, so you should, in return, kind of help us repay and rebuild our treasury. So how do you make money? Taxes! So Great Britain passes the Sugar Act of 1764, and that act placed a tax on anything dealing with sugar. So like sugar, rum, molasses, that kind of stuff, okay? The Stamp Act was the next big program that they tried to implement. This was passed in 1765, and before the Stamp Act could actually take effect in the colonies, the colonists threw such a big fit about it that Great Britain was like, you know what? We're not going to worry about it. We're going to try something else, okay? But the Stamp Act was supposed to place a tax on any paper good. So things like newspapers, any legal documents. It even went down to like playing cards and dice. And it was supposed to be this embossed seal that was going to be on those items, okay? And last but not least, we have the Tea Act. And the Tea Act, people get kind of confused about this. It actually didn't increase taxes on British tea. It made British tea cheaper because it allowed the tea that was being sent to the colonies from the East India Company to go directly to the colonies instead of having to make a pit stop in Great Britain first and then go to the colonies. So it actually made the English tea a little bit cheaper. But the colonists saw that as just a total infringement upon their freedoms, and they said, you know what, we're done. So then that leads to the Boston Tea Party. And you guys know the story behind this. The Boston Tea Party, the colonists dress up as Native Americans. They board a government ship, okay, that was government property, and they destroy the tea. They throw it into Boston Harbor. So you can imagine that Great Britain didn't take that very well. So what did they do? They passed a series of intolerable acts. And the intolerable acts were a series of acts that were designed to clamp down on colonial freedom. And then as time goes on, the colonists are mad. We don't really like all of that. What are we going to do about it? So there's some kind of rumblings of independence. What's going to happen? Are we going to organize together? Are we going to have a united country? How is this going to work? So our founding fathers come together, some of them, at what's called the Albany Congress. And at the Albany Congress, they are trying to figure out what a United States essentially would look like. And the Albany Congress comes up with this thing called the Albany Plan of Union. And if it would have been passed, the Albany Plan of Union would have created a representative body of people who came from all over the colonies. But the colonists didn't like that because they thought it would give too much power to a central government. I'm going to stop there. I lied. It's not your last video. We'll pick up with more on the way to revolution next time. If you have any questions, let me know.